Even after nearly 30 years together, my wife and I have faced an unforeseen twist of fate. Since meeting in college and forging a life side by side, our bond has been steadfast and affectionate. We nurtured each other's careers and shared a palpable connection, albeit less frequent than in our youth. With our grown children leading independent lives, we now contemplate fresh horizons for our journey ahead. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, my wife has been increasingly working from home, leading us to consider my scaling back involvement in my landscaping company's daily operations and her moving to part-time work. This shift would allow us to enjoy more meaningful time together and explore new opportunities, especially now that our parental duties have eased. Reflecting on our past, I can confidently say that there were no warning signs that I have often heard about, no suspicious text messages, secret iPhone behavior, alterations in her appearance, unusual actions, or nights out with colleagues. Whenever she went out, it was typically with friends or family, and the following day someone would always mention that I should have joined them. However, I cherished her independence and valued my solitude in my workshop. She would always return home early, so the shock I experienced was beyond words. It was the day I discovered the truth, which I now refer to as D-Day. Just the week before, I had meticulously planned a surprise weekend getaway at a charming bed and breakfast to celebrate our anniversary during the Winter Festival. Leaving work early, I eagerly drove home to surprise her and instructed her to pack for our trip. As I pulled into the driveway, my eyes caught sight of an unfamiliar car, instantly overwhelming me with a sinking feeling overwhelmed me. I couldn't explain it, but my intuition told me something was amiss. I sat there desperately hoping that my gut feeling was wrong, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Contemplating my next move, I questioned whether I should confront her immediately or leave and address the situation later. Trembling with anxiety, my vision blurred, making it difficult to think clearly. In moments like these, when faced with uncomfortable tasks at work, I often remind myself to gather my courage and face them head-on. My trembling suddenly ceased, and I felt strangely serene. Despite the turmoil inside me, I quietly slipped in through the back entrance, only to find my black lab looking forlorn. He seemed to sense that something was amiss, as he didn't greet me with his usual enthusiasm. I cautiously ascended the stairs, and as I reached the top, the noises from our bedroom grew louder. I pushed the door open, revealing my wife's boss on top of her. I stood there in silence for a moment before exclaiming, "Surprise!" The ensuing chaos would have been comical if it weren't so heartbreaking. He scrambled to get off the bed but got tangled in the sheets. My wife was crying out, trying to cover herself. He struggled to find his clothes on the other side of the bed where mine usually lay. I swiftly grabbed them before him. My wife kept apologizing through her tears. I moved back to the door and sat down on a large armchair I dragged over. He demanded his clothes, but I refused and tossed my wife's robe to him. As he approached me, I warned him that things wouldn't end well if he came any closer. Despite being 51, I was in good shape at 6 feet 3 inches and 240 pounds. Years of gym workouts and landscaping work had kept me fit. He sat down next to my wife after an awkward silence and asked, "What's next?" I replied firmly, "I honestly don't know." My wife, now composed, sat up. I took out my phone and stated, "You both are going to confess everything while I record." They exchanged glances, and my wife inquired, "What do you mean by everything?" I responded firmly, "Yeah, exactly that. Everything. How it all started, how long it's been going on, when and where, hotel stays, dinners, the whole package." My wife insists that this was a one-time thing, but I call BS on that. There's no way she would bring him into our bed if this wasn't an ongoing affair. "If you lie to me again, I'm walking out that door and finding a divorce lawyer." She breaks down crying once more, so for the next 10 to 15 minutes, she spills the truth. It's been happening for over 9 months. It started with him flirting with her, and then he invited her to lunch. She said yes. A few drinks later, they ended up in a hotel. She came home that night acting like nothing had happened. She claimed it was tearing her apart and that she wanted to confess but didn't know how. I call foul once again. If it was really tearing you apart, you wouldn't have continued it so effortlessly. They even went to a week-long work conference that I used to attend with her. She tells me that company policy changed and spouses were no longer allowed. I put my phone in my pocket, and the room falls silent once more. Then an idea hits me. I searched through his clothes for his phone and asked for his passcode. Surprisingly, he gives it to me, so I start going through his phone. I find some pictures of a woman who I assume is his wife. I ask about her name. Carol. She's quite attractive, although not as stunning as my Ashley, I tell him, as I come across more pictures of their children. It turns out he has 3, and finally, a family portrait of all of them. I hold up the phone and comment, "Beautiful family. Why would you risk it all for a fling with my wife?" His response, "What do you mean, risk it all? You really think Carol won't find out?" I say, "How would she find out?" He asks, "How would she find out?" I reply, "I'm about to call her right now." He stands up and protests, "No, you can't." My wife pleads, "Please don't do this to him." I snap, "Don't do this to him? You've shattered me, our family, our friends, our future, and my heart, and you're worried about his well-being?" Shaking again, trying to hide my tears but unable to hold it together any longer, I slump back into the chair and start crying. She tries to come closer, but I give her a commanding glare. "Keep your distance." After a while, I regain my composure and glance at his phone once more. He pleads again, "Please, I'm begging you." I promise I'll tell her. "Yeah, right." I snap back. He stands there, begging me not to ask. I find her number and decide to make a FaceTime call for a bigger impact. She answers and looks confused, asking, "Who are you? Is my husband okay?" "He's fine for now, but that's about to change," I say. I switch the camera to show him standing there in my wife's robe. I add, "I believe you know this man. The room he's in is my bedroom, and the floral robe he's wearing belongs to this woman." I turn the phone to capture my wife, who's trying to hide under the sheets, but it's too late. That's my wife, and I came home early today to find them in bed together. I genuinely feel sorry for her and terrible about how I broke the news. She starts sobbing, and he tries the usual excuses, "Honey, I'm so sorry." I can explain. It was just one time. I tell her not to believe a word he says. It's been happening for over 9 months, and I've spent the last 15 minutes recording all the details they were willing to share. I assure her I'll text her my contact info, and she should send me her email address so I can send her the video. I hand him his phone and overhear her warning him that a packed bag will be waiting outside when he gets home, and if he tries to enter the house, she'll call the cops before hanging up. I throw his clothes at him, and he leaves once he's dressed. Now it's just me and my wife. She looks at me and starts crying, apologizing profusely, saying she never meant to hurt me. Can I find it in my heart to forgive her? "It meant nothing," she says, offering all the usual excuses cheaters make. I stare at her, telling her to pack her things and leave my house. I head downstairs and fix myself a drink, lounging on the couch when she comes down the stairs. She starts walking toward me, and I order her to stop. "Just hold on a minute," she asks, "can we talk about this?" I reply, "Maybe, but not right now." I tell her it's going to be really hard not to consider getting a divorce, and she starts crying again. She looks at me, and I can see she's about to say, "I love you." I interrupt, "Don't you dare say those words right now because I don't think I'll ever believe them again." More tears fall as she turns and leaves through the door. Seeing her walk out in tears, my whole world feels like it's walking away. I collapse on the floor, shaking and crying uncontrollably. I don't know how much time has passed, but eventually, I manage to sit up, still crying. I call my best friend. I try to speak, but the tears start flowing again, and I can't get the words out. He asks what's going on, but I can't answer. He asks if I'm home, and I manage to say yes. He tells me he's coming over. 3 minutes later, he's in my living room, still crying. I hand him my phone with the video playing, and he starts watching. I can't bear to listen to it, so I go to make us both a drink. He goes into the kitchen, takes my drink away, and pours them both down the sink, saying, "This won't help you." He insists, "I can't leave you alone tonight," and tells me to go upstairs and pack a bag. I come back downstairs, and he has my dog on a leash. We head to his place. Update for those who mentioned how great my friend is: his name is Dan, and I couldn't agree more. With our long history of friendship, it's no surprise that our families are close. Our kids are friends, and when they were younger, we used to go on family camping trips together. Over the years, his wife Terry and mine have become good friends, which is important for what happened next. As we were driving to his house, when we arrived at Dan's place, I stayed quiet while Dan's anger continued to grow. He stormed inside and confronted Terry, asking if she knew something. Confused, she replied with a simple no. Dan raised his voice and asked again, to which I stepped in, urging him to calm down and reminding him that it wasn't her fault. Realizing he had crossed a line, he apologized to Terry with a hug. Terry, now completely bewildered, was handed my phone by Dan, who said, "You should know." Not wanting to hear any more of it, I took my dog outside. When everything settled down, Terry came outside in tears and gave me a comforting hug. She took my hand, and we went back inside. The three of us spent the next hour talking and crying, with my phone constantly buzzing in the background. As you can probably guess, it was my wife on vacation. I call my wife again, informing her that our daughter is with me. I ask once more if she's ready to share the news. Should I put her on speaker? My daughter asks her mother to explain what she needs to reveal, but all she hears is crying. So, I take charge and end the call without disclosing any details. I then reveal the shocking news to my daughter. "I discovered today that your mother has been having an affair for the past 9 months. Seeing the hurt on my daughter's face intensifies my pain. She's too shocked to even cry, and I'm on the floor overwhelmed with emotion. I feel like I've failed her when she needed me the most. I struggle to move, but Terry rushes over to comfort her, assuring her that things will get better. Dan is also in tears, as I mentioned before. Our family is close-knit. My daughter lets out a heart-wrenching cry that will stay with me forever, even if I live to be 100. After composing myself, I embrace them both. We eventually find our way to the couch, speechless. I ask my daughter if she's going to be okay. I try to get some sleep, but it's no use. In the morning, I ask Dan for a ride home, give Terry a hug, and let them know how much they mean to me. I mention to Dan that I'm planning to head to my cabin for some peace and quiet. He agrees that it's a good idea. While we're driving, I see a message from my wife's boss's wife among the many notifications on my phone. She thanks me for the video and shares her email address, so I forward it to her and offer my support if she needs to talk. It could be helpful for both of us. I quietly pack up my things, being careful not to wake Dan and Tim as I load up the truck. I grab a couple of my .22 rifles, and when Dan questions me, I explain that I usually do some target practice at the cabin. Not this time, though, as he confiscates them. Cooper joins us, and we head off. After about 2.5 hours, we arrive. I get the cabin ready and start a fire. Cooper and I take a walk in the woods, which is somewhat calming but not completely. My son calls to check on me, and I let him know where I am. I tell him it's okay if his mother wants to stay at the house, but she needs to be gone before I return. He agrees. After our walk, Cooper falls asleep by the fire, and I go chop some firewood. Chopping wood turns out to be a good workout and surprisingly therapeutic. I switch between thinking about my wife and her boss's face. I spend Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at the cabin. On Monday, I made calls to my office informing them I'll be away for a while but reachable for emergencies. Then, I contact my company's attorney for legal matters and get a recommendation for a divorce lawyer. By Thursday, I have a meeting scheduled with the lawyer I reached out to. I also call the bank to freeze our joint account and cancel all credit cards, requesting new ones to be sent. Being alone in the woods has helped me see clearly about what steps to take next. After returning home, I stumble upon this subreddit and begin immersing myself in the stories shared by others. It offers some solace, albeit minimal. In the middle of the week, when I arrive at the office, I engage in a conversation with my HR manager. Our professional relationship is close-knit and is about to become more personal. I confide in her and seek advice on how to approach the situation with my spouse. She advises me to consult my lawyer before taking any further steps. She inquires whether I plan on getting tested and recommends a professional for that purpose. Additionally, she suggests that I visit my doctor for an STD check. I promptly make arrangements with both the recommended professional and my doctor for appointments on Thursday. Subsequently, I meet with my lawyer, presenting her with the video evidence. This time, I'm able to truly listen to her. She shakes her head in disbelief and questions why people engage in such foolish actions. As it turns out, she possesses zero tolerance for infidelity. Her own husband cheated on her, subjecting her to immense suffering to the extent that she altered her career path and became a divorce attorney. She assures me that everything will be all right. I proceeded to sign a contract with her. I inquired about informing the other parties involved, such as the wives, bosses, and HR, but she advised me to exercise patience. Meanwhile, I have a meeting with my wife, who has sought refuge at our son's place. At least she understands that I require some space and was not present at the house upon my return. I have been sleeping on the couch, unable to bear the thought of stepping foot into our bedroom. Whenever I need to gather my belongings, I strive to retrieve as much as possible to minimize the number of times I have to enter that room. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey thus far. It took an immense amount of time to articulate these words. Writing about my daughter brought me to tears for several hours. I will provide another update next week. Update: once again, I want to express my profound gratitude for the invaluable advice and support I have received from this community. I am forever indebted to each and every one of you in a way that I can never fully repay. All I can do is express my heartfelt appreciation and attempt to respond to all the comments. The support and encouragement I've received have been incredibly beneficial. Many of you have mentioned my strength during the confrontation, but right now I feel far from strong and am just going through the motions. The advice given has been top-notch and is helping me progress. The reason for my original post and this one was seeking help. Trust me, there was plenty. My first post was removed because it had too much storytelling and not enough requests for support. I'll try to keep this brief, but I believe details matter. I'm starting to realize that there may be no turning back from this, and I'm 99% sure of my decision. Yet, I can't shake the feeling that I'll be letting go of 29 years of our shared life. Even now, I can't bring myself to type X and still call her my wife. What's wrong with me? Help! On D-Day, she ended up at our son's place with his wife. He called puzzled about what was going on and why I kicked his mom out. I told him she needed to tell him, or I would. he knew I'd gone to my best friend's house. My daughter, who was supposed to be dog-sitting, came home to find no dog. Eventually, she showed up at my friend's place wanting to know what was wrong. I told her the pain on her face was worse than catching my wife in bed with her boss, and it devastated me. She left with the dog to our house and had her fiancé come over on Saturday morning. I told my friend I was going to spend a few days at the cavern. Could he drop me home? He agreed. It was a good idea. So, I packed up, took the dog, and spent some time at the cavern, walking in the woods with the dog and splitting firewood. It was a good workout and therapeutic. I stayed there until Saturday, then drove home. On Monday, I started making phone calls to the bank, credit card companies, and a lawyer I used for company matters. He recommended someone whom I called and met on Thursday. I played her the recording. She exuded an exceptional level of confidence, which prompted me to hire her. When I inquired about informing my wife's boss within our department, she proposed that we postpone the discussion. I'm back home now, lounging on the couch. I can't bring myself to go into the bedroom except to grab some clothes. On Friday, my son called to say his mom couldn't stay with them anymore. It was causing tension between him and his wife. Could she come back home? I hadn't spoken to my wife since D-Day. I reluctantly agreed. She returned on Saturday. I went back to the cavern. It was freezing, but I managed. On Monday, I went straight to the office. The folks there adore my dog and spoil him. I finally went home on Monday night and saw my wife. All I could see was the image of her in bed with her boss on D-Day. I don't think I'll ever get over that. Any advice? We didn't talk. I changed and went to my basement office to keep occupied. Eventually, I watched TV in the basement. She came downstairs and asked if we could discuss this. I told her I wasn't ready yet and requested that she leave me alone. While she was there, I dozed off in the recliner, woke up early, hit the gym, showered there, and went to work. My routine is to come home late for the rest of the week. On Friday, my manager checks in on me. I update her on the recent events in my therapy session. She suggests that I should stop sleeping on couches and chairs and buy a new bed. I think it's a great idea. I withdrew half of the remaining joint account funds, which is my wife's share, and headed out to buy a new bed. The delivery is set for Saturday. I waited at the office for the call that they'll be there in 30 minutes. I stopped to grab a couple of subs for the delivery guys and waited nearby when they arrived. I met them, treated them to lunch, and gave each of them $1.25. To do me a favor, I asked them not to haul away the old mattress and if they could come back later to pick it up. I asked them to lean it against a tree near the street. They looked puzzled, and I told them to give me 5 minutes and come in. They'll get it. I had considered burning the old mattress in the driveway, but I didn't want to deal with a mess. I head upstairs to change the bedding. While I'm at it, something clicks in my mind that I need to address. I grab a can of Blaze orange spray paint we use for marking properties and write "Wife cheated on me" in our bed in big letters. The guys come in, and my wife asks, "What's going on?" I explain that I can't sleep in that bed anymore, and she needs to buy me a new one. She looks upset, then goes downstairs. The new bed is set up, and the guys leave the old mattress where I asked. Later, she tells me they left it in the yard and will come back for it. I try to keep a straight face. I don't think she's caught on yet, but the whole neighborhood will know by Valentine's Day. She tries to be romantic and initiates intimacy. I turn her down, saying I wouldn't occur except even if she were the last woman on earth. She insists we don't just have sex, we make love. Her voice filled with distress, I remind her we haven't made love since she started sleeping with her boss. She looks shocked. Did she think I'd forget? I'm puzzled by her thought process. I decide it's time to talk and ask her to sit in the living room. I ask, "What do you want to do? Should we try to fix things? or should we divorce and move on? I'm not sure why I even suggested the former. I guess I'm stuck on the idea of letting go of 29 years. Please convince me otherwise. She says she's willing to do anything. I ask her to come clean to everyone in our family, starting with her parents and my mom, and explain how I found out about the affair. Our kids don't know this yet, they're coming over tonight. I'll update you on how that goes later. That's my current situation. I'm still in shock from everything and can't instantly fight the urge to confront her boss. But I still need advice. When will things start to get better, or is this my new reality? Update: later that evening, my mom and dad passed away 3 years ago. Her parents, her sister, and brother-in-law all come over. We all gather in the living room, and I make sure to sit as far away from her as possible. They begin with comforting words. What's wrong? We love you, everything will be all right. Assuming someone is seriously ill, I glance at her and say, this story won't tell itself. Her dad looks at me, and I swear his eyes are saying no, as if he senses what's about to happen. I have to give her credit, she tearfully confesses everything, including the part where I caught them in our bed. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she pleads, somebody say something. I reply, what are they supposed to say? That you are a horrible person? That you've hurt me more than you can imagine, ripped my heart out, thrown away 29 years, and destroyed our family? Not to mention the damage you two have caused to his family. Was the sex really worth all of that? I just keep going, all the anger, hatred, and betrayal that I've been holding in comes pouring out. I didn't know I could be so harsh. Her mom finally says, that's enough. She agrees that she deserves it all and runs upstairs crying. Her mom tries to follow her, but her dad says, no, leave her alone. She needs to suffer for a while before things can get any better. We chat for a while, they offer their support and tell me to ask if I need anything. I tell them I've been seeing a counselor and I think I'll be all right, but I appreciate their offer. I tell them that despite everything, I still love her and that she's going to need them more than I do. I go to bed and sleep better than I have since D-Day. The next morning before I leave, I go into the guest room and can tell she didn't sleep and has been crying all night. I genuinely believe that for the first time since the day, the severity of the situation has truly sunk in for her. Confessing to her family and receiving my outburst seems to have snapped her out of the fog of the affair. She appears sincerely regretful. I express the need for more communication, and she listens. I mention that I am 99% inclined towards divorce, but I am holding on to that 1% chance that if there is any hope left, she must comply with my requests to help me move past this. She agrees to do anything except make any immediate decisions. I recount a story my father shared with me when he passed away. When I was 17, my father imparted some wisdom, saying that life will throw challenges your way, but how you handle them reveals your true character. He advised against making important decisions when emotions are running high. At the time, I shrugged it off with a nonchalant attitude. I get emotional as I express how much I wish he were here so I could tell him that I was truly listening. She stands up and embraces me. I don't reciprocate, but the gesture is oddly comforting. She sits back down, and I inform her that she needs to find a new place to live. I explain that I cannot heal if I see her every day. We need space, no contact. She agrees and asks how else she can help. I admit that I am too overwhelmed to think clearly, but I will inform her later. While on my way to work, I contact my lawyer and arrange a meeting for today. She is available. We meet for coffee, and I update her on the situation, including the 99 to 1% dilemma. I request that she prepare divorce papers just in case. She suggests just that. I consider renting an apartment for my wife and cover the first month's rent as a gesture of goodwill if things escalate to court. I agree. She promises to have the paperwork ready for me to review by Monday. I reach out to a real estate broker we have worked with before, explain the circumstances, and get referred to a rental agent. The agent finds a suitable place, and I meet with the property manager to pay for February, March, and the deposit. When I arrive home, I fill my wife in on the apartment details, the cost, the need for her to meet the manager, and sign the lease. The fact that it's a 6-month lease is definitely a positive issue. Surprised by how quickly I've taken action, I explain that I need her to stay away from our sons for a while. I've already scheduled movers to come on Saturday. When she returns, I mention the movers and wonder why she hasn't asked about our finances. I let her know that I've canceled the credit cards, withdrawn my share from our joint account, and deactivated the debit card. She appears upset but admits that she doesn't blame me. It turns out she hasn't had to spend any money since she's been splitting her time between our son's place and home. She also reveals that she requested a leave of absence from work due to personal issues. They granted her paid vacation time starting on Friday. I assure her that she can take whatever she needs for the new place. I just ask her to leave me some essentials and not take anything from the basement or any family heirlooms, including my new bed. I also mention that I'm open to marriage counseling. I recommend that she explore options with 3 different counselors, and I'll decide on the one I feel is the best match. I left early on Saturday morning and returned to a somewhat empty house, including the TV. That's fine by me, though. I was aiming for a larger one anyway. My friend still has my liquor, so I stopped by to settle up, retrieve my favorite bourbon, and enjoyed a glass while writing this. Sorry for the long message, thanks for sticking with me until the end. Tomorrow, my plans include hitting the gym, cooking my favorite chili, and buying a new TV. Not sure if there will be more updates to share in the future.